Hi, welcome to Retroflix. This is the channel for retrospectives on TV and movies. Today's feature movie is a 1985 blockbuster that actually the script got turned down 40 times. And to add insult to injury, once they did end up getting it going, the actor got fired after 5 weeks, the lead actor. Then they had to go get another one. So it all ended up working out, but that story is ahead here. What movie are we talking about? We're talking about Back to the Future, a 1985 movie that was conceived by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale. Now, let's talk about that for a little bit here. Let's look at this conception of this movie. Now, this movie basically is a time travel. This movie is basically a time travel movie, and the lead character, Marty McFly, goes back to 1955 from his present year, which is 1985. And this movie is basically looking at going back in time and see how you might be able to change the past, and of course that change of the past would affect the future. So Bob Gale, after used cars, Zemeckis and Gale had done used cars in 1980. After doing that, Bob Gale went to visit his parents. In his parents' house, he looked at his father's yearbook. And in his father's yearbook, he was looking around and he just thought to himself, would I be friends with my dad if I was back there? And so it got him thinking about this time travel of going back and how you could change the past and to affect the future, and being back with your family when they were younger, how that could change things. And so he brought that concept, that thought, he brought that to Robert Zemeckis. And Zemeckis said, yeah, that actually would be pretty good. I kind of thought that sometimes with my mom. She would tell these stories, and sometimes they're different. And it's like, well, what would it be like if we were back there to find out exactly what the deal was? So he was like, yeah, let's do this. So they ended up writing this script. They went to Columbia. The head of Columbia Pictures at the time was Frank Price. They went to him and pitched it. And Price liked it. He was fine with it. He said he needed some more work. This first draft was done February of '81, but Price said it needed some more work. So Zemeckis and Gale went and they did more work to it. Came back with the second draft in April of '81. The first draft was February of '81, and the second draft was April of '81. So he came back in April of '81, and they said at that point, Price said, I like it, but I don't think we're going to take it. I think we're going to put this in turnaround, which means Columbia, as they came to him, Columbia had the rights to this movie, but what turnaround means then it goes out to other studios, and they can buy it from Columbia, and they can buy the script from Columbia and then do the movie if they like. And so it wasn't a turnaround, and it got turned down 40 times, sometimes more than once by a studio. And what was the reasoning for this? And what was the reason they were turning it down, plus Columbia turned it down? One of the reasons at this time there was two, basically. One reason was comedies at the time were basically more in the kind of like the raunchy body sex type comedies at the time. That's where comedies were, and they were looked at as that's what made money. Back to the Future was going to be too tame to make money. Secondly, was time travel movies up to that time were looked at as not very profitable and had not done well. One of the movies that actually is used a lot in this argument is the movie Time Bandits. But Time Bandits actually was very successful. I don't think that's a good example to use, because Time Bandits was a movie that was out in 1981. They re-released it in '82. Between '81 and '82, it brought in $42 million on a $5 million budget. That's pretty successful. So I'm not quite sure why that. In my opinion, I don't know why they used that movie as an example of a time travel movie that didn't work. But regardless, that's what their thinking was. So that's why they turned Back to the Future down. Not only Columbia, but then the other studios wouldn't pick it up and turn around. So Zemeckis, then he said, okay, we're going to shelve this. Zemeckis went out and he actually got a job directing Romancing the Stone, which actually became a top 10 hit. In fact, it was number 10 in the box office sales in 1984. So it was a success. And so Zemeckis came back after that success with some credit here at that time, with a successful movie under his belt, a top 10 movie under his belt. And they brought back Back to the Future. And so, but Zemeckis still was not finding very much. It wasn't finding any takers, but he had one person that was on his side, and that was actually a mentor of his that they knew back. Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale knew back in the early '70s when they went to film school in USC. And this person is Steven Spielberg. Spielberg at the time, coming off obviously some very great movies. Got back obviously to Jaws and Poltergeist, which I think he was a producer on. But he obviously, the name he had, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, another one. So they said, okay, well, we're going to hitch our wagon to Spielberg, even though they were a little bit afraid of that because, they had worked with Spielberg's movie 1941. And so they had done some work with Spielberg, and they were afraid that, they were afraid that they would get the reputation that they can't do anything without Spielberg. But to get this movie made, they were going to have to go that route. Spielberg actually had actually created a production company that was a part of Universal. And so Spielberg's production company took Back to the Future and said, we will do this. We just need a third draft. We need to rewrite this and put a third draft, which they did, and they got done in July of '84. So they're ready to go with this movie. Next is cast. What are they going to do with cast? Marty McFly is the lead character in this movie. They wanted Michael J. Fox. Michael J. Fox was a star on the sitcom Family Ties at the time, which was playing on NBC. And they wanted Michael J. Fox. Thought he would really do this character. They thought Marty McFly would be more of kind of like an anxious screwball type of character, clumsiness. And they thought he would be really good with that. They went to Gary David Goldberg, the producer of Family Ties, but Goldberg did not want him to go because Meredith Baxter Birney, the other star of the show who played Michael J. Fox's mom, was going on maternity leave. So Gary David Goldberg, they sent the script over, but Goldberg did not give Michael J. Fox a script, so Fox had no idea. So, they believed that Universal, who now obviously is making a movie now, Universal believed that, and Zemeckis and Gale believed that, this wasn't going to work, and Spielberg and everybody like, oh, okay, Fox is out, I guess. He's not interested. So they decided to look at some other actors. They auditioned. Johnny Depp auditioned for this. Ben Stiller auditioned for it. John Cusack auditioned for it. Ralph Macchio auditioned for it. Charlie Sheen auditioned for it. And it basically came down to C. Thomas Howell, who was coming off a couple years before that, the Outsiders, and Eric Stoltz, who was just coming off a fantastic performance in the movie Mask. So they were basically the leads in this. And Zemeckis and Gale, they were really more on the C. Thomas Howell side, but Sid Sheinberg, who was the head of Universal, wanted Stoltz. Well, the head of Universal is probably going to get what he wants in this situation, which he did. So they hired Stoltz. But he did say if it doesn't work out, we can reshoot with somebody else. All right. So Stoltz gets the job. Rounding out the rest of the cast is going to be Leah Thompson, who actually was in a movie with Eric Stoltz called The Wildlife back in about '84, the year before that, which is how she came to the attention of the filmmakers when they were scouting Stoltz in that movie, going back watching that movie. Doc Brown, who's going to be very integral to this as a scientist who's interested in time travel, went to Christopher Lloyd, who had a name from the sitcom Taxi as Reverend Jim. But they also wanted John Lithgow, John Lithgow and Christopher Lloyd worked in a movie called Buckaroo Banzai. which is a great movie we should cover on this channel. They were wanting to have Lithgow, but Lithgow was not available. And I tell you what, you look at Buckaroo Banzai, you can see Lithgow would play a great mad scientist as well. But you cannot ever, you watch this movie, you can't think of anybody else other than Christopher Lloyd, though. But Lloyd obviously either one great choice. And then you had the father. Now Leah Thompson is going to be playing Marty, the teenager, and then Marty's future mother. And the future father, the teenager 55, who then would become Marty's future father, is going to be played by Crispin Glover. And then they needed to have a bully. Who's going to be the school bully, who then eventually will become Marty's dad's boss in 1985. That's going to be Thomas F. Wilson. So that kind of rounds out the main cast. So when the principal photography was starting, which was end of November '84, and they were looking at a 14-week shooting schedule. It started in November of '84. Well, about 5 weeks after, at the end of December '84, the filmmakers got together and was looking at the film and were like, "This isn't working. It's just not working." And it was Stoltz. They were like, "Well, the way he's portraying Marty McFly is not what we want. He's playing it more of a serious, intense tone, not kind of like the slapstick, nervousness, clumsiness, screwball type of a role that we were looking at here." And so they decided this wasn't going to work. And even Sheinberg agreed. And he said, "Well, you know what I said, you can get somebody else." And so they said, "We want Fox. Let's go back and get Fox." So they went back and got Fox, talked to Goldberg. Goldberg went to Fox and said, "Okay," because Meredith Baxter Birney was back at this point off maternity leave. So Fox wasn't going to be off the show, but Goldberg said, "Okay, you can do this other project now. There's going to be some stipulations, but Bernie's back. You can do this. You can do this now." So Goldberg had to tell Fox that he kept the script from him. I don't know what Fox's reaction was at that moment to that, but Fox agreed to do it, and reportedly without even looking at the script, he agreed to do it. There were stipulations though, because he was still going to be doing Family Ties. He would have 6 hours after Family Ties. They would shoot at night, but he'd have 6 hours that they would have Michael J. Fox and to be able to shoot the movie. So Michael J. Fox basically would be working on Family Ties from about 8, 9 in the morning until 5 or 6 at night. And then after that, he would then go to the set of Back to the Future and shoot that, for 6 hours, wherever that 6 hours could be. It could be early morning, and then come back, get a couple hours sleep, and go back to the set. Still very exhausting. Now he did say at one point, Michael J. Fox said at one point that he was like, "Yeah, it was exhausting, but it was one of those things where I'm 22. I can do this for a couple months." And sure enough, he was able to do that. They had to tell Stoltz, obviously, he was no longer in the movie. And there was nothing really against him. He's a great actor. It just was the wrong role. He would go off and have a very successful career. It just wasn't the right role. So Stoltz was fired January 10th of '85, and Fox started January 15th of '85. And I guess the mood around the set just really changed. And Michael J. Fox just brought this environment to him that, it's like everybody, "Okay, we got a great movie here, let's do this." And that's what they did. It ended up being phenomenal. The thing about it is at the shooting, at the end of the movie, shooting it, they originally were going to release it in the theaters in August of '85. Sheinberg, being head of Universal, and others saw that and said, "You know what? This is a great movie. This is a great movie that has been made. We got to get this out in July of '85. That way we can catch the rest of the summer." All right, and sure enough, that's what they would do. a little bit more about the results of that a little bit later. I do want to mention right now a couple other things about this movie. Number one, the DeLorean, which is an iconic part of this movie. They originally wanted to have this. They really originally wanted to have like a spaceship in the back of a truck and have it drive it around, but they were like, that's not going to work. So they decided to get a DeLorean, which was out. It was basically only produced in 81 and 82. Although I think there are models to 83. I think it's from 81 to 83, but the production was only 81 to 82. And the DeLorean was a company started by John DeLorean. It's called the DeLorean Motor Company, and the car basically kind of looks spaceship almost. And the car doors go up like this instead of out; they go up. And so it kind of gives that feeling of a spaceship. So in 1955, if you saw that car in 1955, you would think it was from Mars. You would think aliens were coming. So it was a perfect car for that, and very iconic. Maybe most of you movie posters they have the DeLorean on there. Secondly is music. The soundtrack went to number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100 here in the United States. It made it 21 in Canada. Those are countries that did the best. All right, but 12 here in the United States. They approached, at the time, Huey Lewis and the News were coming off a tremendous album called Sports. The filmmakers, they came up to Huey Lewis and would see if he would make a song for the movie. But Huey Lewis wasn't really interested because I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to make a song for a movie. But he said, I got this song that I've been doing. It had nothing to do with the movie, but I got this song and you can have it. And they did take it. It was called Power of Love. All right, and that was put in the movie. But the lyrics and the song doesn't have any tie to the movie. But eventually, Huey Lewis and the News they were like, okay. So they did end up making a song based for the movie called Back in Time. Interestingly enough, whenever they both released these songs as singles, and they both put them on their next album that was called 4, they released them as singles as well and put them on the album. But as a single, The Power of Love went to number 1. Back in Time didn't chart. So maybe Huey Lewis was right, with that. Although he ended up making a really good song for that movie, it didn't chart. But the song that he just gave that had nothing to do with the movie ended up going to number 1. So those are kind of interesting snippets right there. Back to the Future, they ended up getting that in the movie theaters in July of '84. It obviously it went to number 1 that year, and to this day has made just about, I've seen different figures, but just about around $400 million, and it was done on a $19 million budget. So just a fantastic movie. Like I said, I think one of the best all time. Not the number 1 in '85, but one of the best movies all time. One of the best movies all time. I remember as a teenager. I was in basically junior high at this time, going on to high school. But I remember going to the theater to see this movie for at least 6 times from July till I went back to school, which was probably after Labor Day back then. I think we usually went. So just a tremendous movie, and so it is something that for those of you that have not seen this, you need to go out and you need to get this, stream it, take a couple hours and watch this movie. Please put any comments down. If you've seen this movie, comment below. Let's talk about this. What do you think of it? Do you have any memories of it? And if you haven't seen it yet, go see it and put a comment down below and see what you think. Tell us what you think of it. Let's have a talk about this, a discussion about this. And also too, if there's any other movies that you want to see, put it down in the comments below, and we'll have those. And I definitely take requests. I want to have you guys involved in this as well. No doubt about that. Please like and subscribe. It's going to really help the channel. I really look forward to doing this with you. Until the next time, that's a wrap.